Hey everyone, welcome back to another Mattel Jurassic World review. Today we're taking a look at the new Dino Fierce Force Velociraptor. Fierce Force is just a new name for Savage Strikes. Figures still come in the same style boxes and they still retail for around that $10 price point. Ended up picking this figure up at Target. They had a few on the shelf. I believe the case breakdown is 2 Velociraptors, 2 Mashiacosaurus, 1 Gallimimus, and 1 Sauropelta. I've actually seen a few of these at Targets the last couple days. I've seen a few Velociraptors, a few Mashiacosaurus. The only one I have not seen on shelves yet is the Sauropelta. For whatever reason, it's kind of interesting that a repaint is getting picked over before the new sculpt, but maybe that's because the Sauropelta was available at the very beginning of Primal Attack, and some people might have missed out on that one. This figure is also listed on Target's site, so I'll leave a link down below to Target in the description. I'm not a huge fan of picking up multiple Velociraptors. There's a ton of them in the line, but this one features a new action feature, so that's why I picked it up to check it out. So let's go over the packaging really quick before we crack this figure open. Comes in the new Fierce Force packaging, which is very similar to the old Savage Strike. Got the Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous logo up here, Toro the new Dino Escape logo, Darius, you got the busted up paddock fencing in the background, and then turn the box over. It gives you a picture of how that side slashing action works on here. Very interested. Can't wait to get this out of the box and see how that works out. And then down here are the other figures available in this wave. And like I said with the Mashiacosaurus review, this wave is just way too green. The Velociraptor is the only thing that adds like a splash of color to the first wave of Fierce Force. So that will do it for the packaging. Let's crack this Raptor open and take a closer look. Alright, let's start a nice 360-degree view of this new Raptor. At first glance, it looks like this figure is composed of parts of other Savage Strike Raptors. That is actually untrue upon closer inspection. The only part reused on here is the head. That crested has been used on a few Raptor molds already. Everything else is a brand new sculpt. The legs, the arms, the body, and the tail, which was actually quite surprising. And the best part is, if you look at the hands, the wrists aren't pronated. I don't think we've seen that yet on a Jurassic World style Raptor in the line so far. So that is another pleasant surprise. The color scheme is nothing to write home about. Like I said with the Mashiacosaurus review, Mattel seems to be going back to that two-tone color scheme that they did really heavily in Dino Rivals, and it seems like it's back. The main body is just cast in like this greenish yellow plastic, almost looks like bile, and then you have a hefty coat of brown paint all over the rest of the body. There is actually another paint app on there. If you look along the sides of the body, there's some flecks of white paint for like some spotting along the side, and that's really it for color. You know, that white is kind of, you know, barely noticeable, so it just looks like a brown and bio-colored Raptor. But I do like the crested head sculpt. Maybe sometime in the future this could be repainted into the female JP3 Raptor, you know, so people don't have to pay $1 billion to get that, you know, inferior one that came with the Grant Story Pack. And the other thing is, because of the new action feature, you know, the body swings side to side for that side slashing action, the body on this Raptor is really thick. It's really big and barrel-chested, so you don't really get that sleek, lean Raptor look on this mold. It just looks really wide and like has like a pot belly. So that is also something to note about this. All right, let's just do a couple quick measurements. This figure is 7.5 inches long from the tip of the tail to the tip of the snout, and about 4 inches tall. So just the way this figure is sculpted, it's actually taller than most of the other Raptors from Mattel. So in the Jurassic Park franchise, Raptors average between 13 and 16 feet long. So with those measurements, that put this figure somewhere in the 120 to the 125 scale range. So let's zoom in and take a look at some of the finer details on this figure, starting with the head sculpt. This is the crested Raptor head. We've seen this sculpt on the Leaping Savage Strike Raptors, and now it makes an appearance on this new mold. The whole top of the head is cast in brown plastic. As you can see, since we're zoomed in, that brown plastic does not match up to the brown paint on the rest of the body. It's not super noticeable, but it's definitely a shade lighter than the painted on brown. The eye is painted bright yellow. As you can see, it is a little bit misprinted. It actually looks worse on camera than it does in person. And in person, you can't really tell that's slightly misprinted. And you'll see the pupil is brown. That is because that is just the brown plastic underneath for the pupil color. I always hate when Mattel does this. They kind of got away from it a little bit in Primal Attack. They actually, you know, painted the eyes, with black paint, like another paint app, and now they're back to doing this crap again. And that's just lazy, unfortunately, and, it is what it is. The bottom jaw is cast in that weird, greenish yellow color. The bottom jaw is articulated, and inside you can see the teeth are nicely painted with a pink tongue, and the roof of the mouth also has some pink paint on it. It's got that glossy coat for that wet look. And then going down to the neck, you can see some bumps and ridges sculpted on here. So like I said, the head and this neck piece are the only reused part on this whole entire figure. Everything else is brand new. Now let's go down to those non-pronated arms. Those look great. I love the way they look. I'm tired of that, broken wrist look on the Raptors, even though that's just, Jurassic Park canon now, but it's nice to see that they changed up the wrist on this figure. I think it looks much better. You do have some brown flecks molded into the plastic. Looks much better on this figure than it did on the Mashiacosaurus and the Explorer T-Rex. I have no idea what's going on with the flecks and the plastic with that. It just looks absolutely terrible, but came out much better on here. Now look at the figure from the front. You can see just how wide the chest is on this thing because of the action feature. Compared to the other Raptors, like this chest is almost like twice as wide. And then going down to the legs, you get some nice sculpted details along the legs. This break right here is for the action feature that we'll go over shortly. Going down to the feet, you have some nice oversized feet. I thought these were the same feet on the old Savage Strike, but they are actually a little bit bigger. They're like kind of between the slashing Savage Strike and the leaping Savage Strike feet. They're just like kind of in between that. Unfortunately, the toe claws aren't painted in. Usually Mattel paints the toe claws in on these Savage Strike Raptors. They didn't do it on this one, and it looks absolutely terrible. No excuse not to paint the toe claws in on them. And then turn the figure over. Here is the scan code for those who want to scan it into the Fax app. And let's just zoom out a little bit, and let's take a look at the paint apps on the side of the body. Like I said, this is all brown paint, and then you have this off-white color speckling right here. It's barely noticeable. It kind of blends into the main plastic. Like I said, just really not a fan of the two-tone look Mattel's going with some of these figures in Dinoscape. Not off to a good start in my eyes. And you can see that brown color goes all the way down to the tip of the tail. Actually, the tail is all painted in because it is cast in that bio-colored plastic. And then if you see right here on the back, sorry, I'm just juggling this figure, it looks like there's a molded piece for like a button. So maybe this might be retooled into a different type of action feature later, or maybe it included it at some point and they decided to remove it, but you can definitely see a seam right here where a button is supposed to be. So that is really interesting. So let's zoom out and take a look at articulation. We already did the jaw, but let's do it again. Can open that up that wide. It can close pretty flush. The neck can rotate 360 degrees. There's a hinge to let it look back a little bit and look forward a little bit. Going down to the arms. Arms are on a hinge so they can swing out. They can move forwards and backwards. Going down to the legs can move forwards about that far. Let me get my camera to focus back in on that. That's the farthest they're going to move because they hit that really, really wide belly. And there's also that little ratchet joint that locks the leg back into a neutral position. And they can go back about that far. On the tail right here, tail rotates 360 degrees for no reason. Every time I say that, Mattel definitely needs to add hinges to these so the tails can swing side to side. That'll add much better posability in my eyes. And now onto its Fierce Force action feature. It's really not the most glamorous action feature. What you need to do is just pull the arm and the body will rotate and it will slash. It can go in either direction and it works, kind of okay. You can even grab it by the head and swing it, and it just, that's all it does. I have to say, the action feature on this thing sucks. I think it's the worst action figure on any dinosaur in the line so far. So I guess, you could put a human here, and let's see if he will side slash him. Can't even knock him over. Absolutely terrible. Only I can knock him over when my finger hits it. So yeah, absolutely terrible action feature. I wonder if it would have worked better if that button I pointed out on the back was incorporated. Maybe that was just part of the prototype or something. But yeah, whatever it is, it's terrible. It stinks. I don't like it. Alright, crappy action features aside, let's move on with comparisons. Here it is, one of the human figures. Here it is with Kenji. Maybe Nedry is just too fat for this thing to knock over. Let's give it just one more go. If it can actually hit him. It doesn't knock him over. There we go, finally. Oh my god, so terrible. So terrible. And next up, here it is with the leaping Savage Strike Raptor. This one is Echo. You can see they share the exact same head sculpt because this one, the way this one is sculpted is much taller. And let's just do one more Velociraptor. Here's the slash in action Velociraptor, same thing. It's still just a little bit taller than it. I actually really like this mold, and the action feature on that one works fantastic, unlike this one. And next up, here it is with its wave mate, the recently reviewed Mashiacosaurus. And here it is with the Roar Attack Ceratosaurus. And next up, here it is with the Mega Destroyer Carcharodontosaurus. Still can't believe that they already announced a repaint of this. Well, actually, it was just like someone found it in the Facts app. No one knows when exactly when it's going to come out. But we're most likely already getting a repaint of the Carcharodontosaurus. You know, forget about the Amargasaurus and the Dimetrodon and stuff. Let's do, you know, another Carcharodontosaurus, which I will buy because I do like this mold. But there's definitely some other species that need re-releases than this thing. And next up, here it is with the Danger Pack Scorpius Rex. So, final thoughts on the Fierce Force Velociraptor. It's just a meh release in my eyes. I usually don't get too excited over the Velociraptors anyways, except maybe this one right here. I absolutely really love the Savage Strike Velociraptor. The action feature on here, you know, to put it bluntly, sucks. It definitely could have used more time in R&D before they actually, finalized the product. I feel like, something went wrong in the prototype phase. I feel like this thing should have had a button. I think if it had a little bit more force with your finger pushing on that button instead of relying on that spring that's in there, the action feature would have worked a little bit better. At least you could, knock figures over with it. The color scheme is also kind of forgettable. Like I said, Mattel's kind of going back to this two-tone stuff. Really don't like it. It's just that, sickly looking green color and brown with just a little bit of a white thrown in, and, they're not painting the pupils again, which is really annoying to me. So if you're a Velociraptor collector, you're going to pick this up regardless. If you're not really into the Raptors, this is just an easy pass. Just leave it on the shelf and go buy something else. And like I said at the beginning of the review, I ended up finding this figure at Target. It's also listed on their sites. It comes in and out of stock randomly. That link is down below in the description. So that'll do it for the review. I just have a couple more Jurassic World stuff to review. I got the adult Roar Attack Bumpy, the Wild Pack Herrerasaurus, and some kind member on Paddock 9 is one of the Jurassic Park Facebook groups. Finally found me a Wild Pack Zuniceratops. I should have that in a couple of days. Big thank you, Matt. That was huge. And I should have the GR Toys Carcharodontosaurus and PNSO Nanotyrannus reviews up sometime by the weekend, so stay tuned for those. And as always, if you're enjoying the content on the channel, show your support by hitting that subscription button just below the video. Each subscription helps out the channel tremendously and is greatly appreciated. And I'll see you guys for the next one.